This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
It's going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
What is going on, everybody? Guys and girls, welcome back to another edition of the SmackDown review right here on the WWE Podcast. As always, I am one of the hosts of this show, Michael Ritter. You can find me on X at Michael5Ritter, on Instagram at MichaelRitter5, and also one of the hosts of the Football Function Podcast, available on all of your podcasting platforms, including on this one, whichever one you're listening to this show. It's also available on Patreon if you prefer an ad-free experience. Now I'm going to be covering the episode of SmackDown that aired on February 9th, 2023 from Charlotte, North Carolina. Shout out to DJ Kuzmo for the location breakdown per usual. I don't know how I feel about this episode of SmackDown. I didn't feel disappointed while I was watching it. It wasn't until the show ended and I was kind of looking back on everything that happened and going over my notes that I realized, man, we really didn't get any type of appearance from any of the parties connected to the obvious, juiciest topic right now in wrestling, which is The Rock, Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes. We want Cody, the Cody crybabies, all that good stuff. It's been going on for, the better part of over a week. And I thought that maybe we'd get the show opening with one of those guys. Now we got it with Triple H, and he immediately referenced the press conference, and he immediately went in on all that stuff. And we'll get to that whenever we start breaking down the show. But just in the, the big picture look of SmackDown, kind of just zooming out a little bit, I was kind of surprised that we didn't get anything. And obviously later in the show, we did get Paul Heyman. Him and Triple H had a little bit of an encounter where we found out that The Rock and Roman Reigns are going to be on SmackDown next week in Salt Lake City, Utah. So that is a little bit of something. That's something to look forward to. But still, we are well into WrestleMania season. And the fact that Roman Reigns wasn't there, Roman Reigns didn't show up to this episode of SmackDown, we shouldn't be surprised, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't be upset. Now, we're very used to Roman Reigns at this point not showing up to SmackDown, Raw, whatever. He's rarely there. He was there at the press conference in Vegas. But I guess I'm just curious, what is he doing that makes him not available for these types of things? Now, I understand if it's May, if it's July, or, October or something like that. Yeah, take whatever time off you need. The roster should be strong enough to withstand your absence. But WrestleMania season? Like the SmackDowns immediately after the Royal Rumble. I get it. He was there last week. Well, dude, you're the Universal Champion. You're the Undisputed Champion, whatever you want to call yourself. Tribal Chief, head of the table. You got to be there from time to time, especially in crunch time. This is very, very important. That's really my only complaint, is that Roman Reigns wasn't there. I get it. The Rock, whatever, I don't anticipate him being on actual WWE TV more than a handful of times between now and WrestleMania. Mostly his interaction is going to be remote, pre-taped video packages or whatever. I don't think that, outside of that press conference where he slapped Cody, I don't think we're going to get a whole lot of that. Now we might get some boil over when we get really close to WrestleMania. I mean, obviously they have to get us excited. They have to promote this main event and make it feel important. I could already tell that it feels important because of the press conference in the first place. Am I crazy? I know that they do it after, the big pay-per-views. They always have a press conference, media availability. But in the middle of the week, in between Raw and SmackDown, they went and they cut their promos and stuff. Now, is it because of all of the mainstream media that is in Las Vegas because of the Super Bowl, that they just wanted to kind of jump on there, throw their name into the hat, get people talking, get eyes on their product? That could be it. But I just felt like it was strange. I can't remember years past where they just, in the middle of the week, you're like, you know what? We just had a Monday Night Raw. We got a SmackDown this Friday where we could easily do this. Let's go ahead and do it in a press conference form in the middle of the week because we have that much to talk about. This story is so juicy. We can't wait 2 extra days. We have to get it right now and pretty much make it its own spectacle. Seth Rollins was there, which, I watched like a 21 minute video on YouTube where it was pretty much just the juicy parts of, Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes, The Rock, them showing the family tree, Cody Rhodes referencing how their ancestors would be ashamed of them right now, and obviously The Rock taking offense to that and slapping Cody Rhodes right in the face. A brawl starts to break out, not an actual fist fight, but you could tell that people had to be held back. I don't know what you call that, but things definitely got pretty heated in that moment, and Seth Rollins kind of was going back and forth with Roman Reigns himself as he was walking away, which I don't really know why Seth was there. I guess just because Cody's decision that he made at the press conference whenever he chose Roman Reigns. That was, it was confusing, I guess, because did we not just see on Friday that he said, I'm not going to face you at WrestleMania? What made him change his mind? Now, we could have been worked. I'm totally acknowledging the fact that could have been all part of the plan. Like, yeah, we're going to have Cody say The Rock is going to get a chance to face Roman Reigns. But the backlash the WWE got because of that almost makes me feel like they just called an audible, maybe, because what part of that face-to-face where Roman Reigns and The Rock got face-to-face made you think they were about to team up and they were about to kind of, be a two-man band or whatever? Now, they could just be trying to push that match because Roman Reigns even said in the press conference, like, this is a done deal. This is already set in stone. It's like Roman Reigns was trying to push for the Rock versus Roman match. So I think that maybe we were going about it the wrong way, where they're maybe trying to have that WrestleMania main event, but not necessarily feud with each other, if that makes sense. I'm still very confused about this whole thing. I guess that's a good thing because WWE isn't making it extremely obvious in certain areas where you can see the next move coming. You know exactly what they're going to do. I am pretty clueless, and I just want to see what happens. Just like you, obviously I'm a fan, just like everybody listening to this podcast, just like everybody watching. I have zero inside information. Every single prediction I make is just a hunch. It's just like my hypothesis or my type of guesstimation for what I think is going to happen. There's no type of connection or source with the company. So I am just like you in this sense. I'm in the dark, and I'm excited to see kind of what plays out from this. But I'm going to need to see more appearances from The Rock, from Roman Reigns. They're going to be there next week. But can we get like multiple weeks in a row? It's WrestleMania season. I am in a group chat for a Madden League with like maybe one or two other wrestling fans. There's like 10 to 12 people in that group chat, but there's not a lot of wrestling fans. And obviously whenever you're in a group chat, it's not just Madden that we talk about. We talk about all types of things, including wrestling with the few of us who actually watch it. And some of the people in there used to watch. They used to be fans back in the Attitude Era and the Ruthless Aggression Era. And they don't watch now for obvious reasons. Now, I'm always waving the flag. I'm always saying, look, I get it. You're used to certain big-name stars. You're used to having The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Undertaker, Triple H, all active wrestlers. And, I totally get it. I love that era. And I will be the first person to tell you that I'm going to remember it for the rest of my life. But in that same breath, I could also tell you that the roster that WWE has right now at their disposal is very, very good. Like, it is extremely deep. And you wouldn't know it from the outside looking in because it's not the big name stars that you're familiar with. It's a little bit out of your comfort zone. And that's what I was trying to tell the people in the group chat. They were all, they watched that last episode of SmackDown when The Rock came out. They didn't watch the whole episode, but I sent them that link. I sent that segment to that group for the wrestling fans that were in there. And even non-wrestling fans were like, whoa, that was really cool. I love The Rock. I kind of want to see what happens next. I sent the link to the press conference. They're like, man, it's been a while since I felt like that. I'm kind of getting the hunch, the urge to start watching wrestling again. And then Friday kind of drops the ball with that storyline. They kind of drop it. Other than Triple H, which, I'm about to get to Triple H. He did a phenomenal job. kind of setting the stage, letting you know, clearing the air on exactly what's going on. But the lack of appearance from the three big people in this whole storyline, it might have kind of turned those people away. Like, what the hell? I tuned in to see what happened from that press conference the other day, and I didn't see any of those guys. Now, maybe you tuning in allowed your eyes to feast on people like Sami Zayn going one-on-one with Randy Orton. Maybe even Drew McIntyre and AJ Styles, people who you might not be familiar with. You're able to see those guys now. So I'm also acknowledging, like, hey, while I'll say that SmackDown kind of dropped the ball with that just group of people, the whole episode of SmackDown, I felt like it was a good episode of SmackDown. Like, there was some very important qualifying matches between very talented wrestlers. We saw a number one contenders match for a tag team opportunity at Elimination Chamber. There were pretty good promos, obviously Triple H making an appearance. So I won't go as far as to say, like, oh, this episode of SmackDown sucked. That's why I said, like, whenever, you have to zoom out. And afterwards, whenever I started taking my notes that's whenever I had my critiques. But in real time, watching the episode of SmackDown, I actually thought it was pretty good. So that's just my opinion. Obviously, everyone is entitled to their own opinion. So if you didn't enjoy the episode of SmackDown, I totally understand. You were probably really looking forward to seeing certain people and seeing a program get developed a little bit more. So I'm totally with you on that. You have every right to feel the way that you feel. Just me personally, I thought that it wasn't the worst episode of SmackDown. And, maybe the bar is set a little bit high, especially after this last week. But I do think that if I were to give it a number grade from 1 to 5, I'd probably give it like a 3.5 out of 5, which is, well over half and definitely gets my stamp of approval. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and get into this episode of SmackDown. Like I mentioned, it aired on February 9th, 2024 from Charlotte, North Carolina. The show started with a video package just highlighting all of the main key points, everything you need to see from the press conference the night before. Although I will say, if you haven't already, go check it out. Just go to YouTube, just type in Rock, Roman, Cody press conference. It'll be one of the first videos that pop up. It's worth seeing. Even if you've already seen it, maybe watch it again. But I will say it's definitely something that I'm not used to them doing, just being completely honest. Even the press conferences after the show, like after the big pay-per-views like the Royal Rumble, I feel like those are kind of strange. They're insightful. You learn things from it. I just never really figured they'd go that route because, it's kind of, it leaves the opportunities for like what we saw last week when that reporter asked Cody Rhodes about what happened with Vince McMahon and that type of thing, so I totally understand the logic behind doing a press conference. Like it makes sense. I guess I just didn't expect WWE to put themselves out there and allow that. But it's such a smart decision. It really is. Like, I look forward to those press conferences. I always watch them. You get to see sides of wrestlers that maybe you don't get to see, and they feel extremely real. The questions seem like they're they're definitely coming from legit journalists, but it seems like they're given the free will to just ask whatever they want, and WWE is just basically trusting them to, keep the questions somewhat logical. And I'm not saying that the reporter who asked that question about Vince McMahon was out of line. It was a legitimate question, but maybe ask Triple H that. Why would you ask Cody Rhodes? That was my whole thing about that. But whenever you have press conferences and you allow media to just have free reign and ask whatever they want, you have to prepare for, off the wall questions. But starting with this show, Triple H, he opens it. Anytime his music hits, it's probably going to be a pretty important segment. I've come to realize that Triple H doesn't come out to introduce the 24/7 title anymore. Like, he's not coming out to just make some BS announcement. Like, if he's coming out, it's usually something pretty juicy. And this time he had Nick Aldis and Adam Pearce at his side, joining him in the ring. He talks about the road to WrestleMania taking a left turn and essentially catching fire, referencing the press conference, how, just things kind of got out of hand, and he feels like he has to set the record straight. He has to clear up a couple things from that press conference. He feels like people are trying to flex their authority, even if they don't have any. He's pretty much talking about how there's a little bit of confusion with people knowing their roles. And he makes it very clear that there's only one person with power and there's only one person with answers, and it's him. You're looking at him. He clarifies that the main event of WrestleMania will be Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes, and he understands that that decision is going to upset some people. But it doesn't matter what you think. Those are his words. And he's taking shots at The Rock, putting The Rock in his place here. This was 100% a promo that seemed to be targeted towards The Rock. I even asked myself, I said it out loud when we were watching it. I was like, is he trying to set up a match between himself and The Rock at WrestleMania? Like, what the hell's going on here? But anyways, after Triple H announces that is going to be in the main event, the same one as WrestleMania 39, we get back-to-back Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns for that Undisputed Universal Championship. Now, what happens with The Rock, I guess we'll kind of figure out. We'll go from here, maybe see what happens next week. We are still in the beginning stages of this. That's the thing I love about it, is I know how early we are into this whole process. So there are questions right now that we have that are already figured out, that are already going to be answered in due time. So we just have to be patient, sit back, and enjoy the ride that we're going to be going on. But Nick Aldis then he turns his attention to something else. He acknowledges that we need a number one contender for the World Heavyweight Championship in Seth Rollins. So he says that number one contender will be determined in Perth, Australia, inside of the Elimination Chamber. The 6 spots will be earned in qualifying matches. And Adam Pearce, grabs a microphone, a Raw microphone. I thought that was kind of odd. Like, you're bringing your Raw microphone to a SmackDown show? Come on. And if you guys don't know the difference, obviously the corners of the microphone, because they have that little box cover that has the WWE logo. And on the corner, it's either red or blue. I'm sure most of you already know that. But it was just a small detail that I actually appreciated. You guys know I love a brand split, and that was just a small detail there. Adam Pearce brings his own microphone for Monday Night Raw, but he announces the 12 contenders that are going to be participating in the qualifying matches to determine the 6 participants in that Elimination Chamber. And the first match, the first qualifying match, ends up being next. It's Drew McIntyre versus AJ Styles. And Drew comes out first with a microphone, and he cuts a promo that it really covers a lot of ground. He starts off pretty much bearing, however you want to pronounce it, CM Punk, with that shirt that he has of CM Punk literally underground at like a gravesite. And it's CM Punk's WrestleMania main event dreams or whatever it is. I don't know what the exact shirt is, but apparently that shirt is jumping to the top of the WWE shop charts. So shout out to Drew McIntyre for getting a very profitable shirt. He also calls himself DM Hunk. I don't know if I missed that, him making that reference previously. You guys know I'm not a frequent Raw watcher. So if he mentioned that on Raw, then I definitely missed it. Thought that was kind of funny. But he claims that whenever he does enter the Elimination Chamber and he wins it, goes on to WrestleMania and defeats Seth, that he will give WWE and all of us fans a champion that they can be proud of. This segues into that match I was talking about, Drew McIntyre versus AJ Styles. And we get LA Knight coming out to join them on commentary. One thing I noticed, and it kind of carried over throughout the entire night, during these qualifying matches, they would put on the barricade Elimination Chamber graphics. And even, my girlfriend's 6-year-old son, he was able to point out and kind of call it out, like, why does it say Elimination Chamber right there? Like, shouldn't it say SmackDown? I was like, dude, you're so right. You're 6 years old, and even that it should say SmackDown. But, it's not a big deal. I just kind of, it throws me off. And even if you're watching, Monday Night Raw or SmackDown, every now and then you'll see them show an instant replay during a match. And in the replay, it'll show the upcoming pay-per-view's logo. And that's just something that kind of throws me off, because if you're watching that just as a casual fan, you would think maybe I'm watching, like, for example, weeks leading up to the Royal Rumble, if you'd watch Raw or SmackDown, you would see that when they would show an instant replay, in the corner of the replay, it would show the Royal Rumble logo, just pretty much plugging it, getting reminders out there to everybody that, hey, the Royal Rumble's coming up. You might want to, tune in or whatever. They're trying to boost ratings for the actual Royal Rumble. But my only thing that I'm trying to say is, if you were just a casual watcher and you tune in and you see one of those replays, would you not think that you were watching the Royal Rumble? Because that logo is popping up and, they have it shown all on the barricade and it's just decorated as if it's that event. That's something that I feel like I'm going to have to get used to. I'm not going to complain about it forever. I'm just saying that it was somewhat different than, what I've been used to. And it could be confusing to people who could just be passing through and watching. But anyways, the match kind of spills outside. Like I mentioned, LA Knight is over there at commentary, and as the match is spilling outside and wrestlers getting thrown onto the announce table, it obviously spills over and LA Knight nearly gets hit, so it pisses him off. He goes to the apron. As AJ Styles has Drew McIntyre rolled up for a pinfall, that distracts the official, so AJ Styles gets up, tries to go get LA Knight, and that pretty much cost him the match because he gets hit with a Claymore, and Drew McIntyre wins, and he advances to the Elimination Chamber match. The thing about this tournament that I'm really liking is how deep it is. Like, yeah, there's a couple people that all right, even if they were to make it in the Elimination Chamber, they're damn sure not going to win. But when you have Drew McIntyre and AJ Styles in a first round, I know it's not really even a tournament, it's just a qualifying match. But if you have one of them, like the very first match is two former heavyweight champions, two former top guys, that just tells you right now, man, like kind of what I alluded to earlier, this is such a deep roster. And it was crazy that one of those guys was going to be left out of the Elimination Chamber. So it was just something that I kind of noticed there. But up next, we get another qualifying match for the Elimination Chamber. This one is a women's match, Matche versus Bianca, and it was a relatively easy win for Bianca. Not necessarily a squash match, but it damn sure wasn't one of her toughest competitors, let's just say that. So she joins Becky Lynch as the only two women who have qualified for the Women's Elimination Chamber match. And then taking things backstage, we get Braun Breaker. He has a moment with Triple H. He's pretty much, just from their history in NXT, these guys are very familiar with each other. So Triple H is just telling Braun how proud he is of him and how he's excited to see what he does at this level. And then Braun asks him for advice, pretty much saying, hey, like I got two great offers, one from Raw, one from SmackDown, and I really don't know what to do. And he's trying to ask Triple H for advice on where he should sign, and Triple H seems like he's about to give him some advice. And then Paul Heyman barges in, and he tells Triple H that next week he will be back to talk with him because it just didn't seem like a good time. He even mentioned that. It doesn't seem like it's a good time. So here's this. Next week, I'll be back, and I'll have Roman Reigns and The Rock with me. So a couple things here. Number one, that was their way of making it seem like it was okay to not have them on the show. We had Paul Heyman show up, and it wasn't a good time to talk to Triple H. So we got to do this whole thing a whole week later. Yeah, I'm not buying that. There was also a little bit of a comment from Paul Heyman saying, well, that's a very talented athlete or a very talented wrestler from a very wacky family, referring to the Steiners, which sidebar. If we're pointing out that they're related, if we're pointing out that there is a connection between Rick Steiner and Scott Steiner and obviously Braun Breaker, why did they not just give him the Steiner name? Like, it's always confused me. It's always going to confuse me because he does have potential to be like a big time wrestler. He has potential to be a WrestleMania main event type of guy. So I guess I'm just surprised as to why you're not leaning into that history. Like Cody Rhodes gets to have his dad's last name. Randy Orton gets to have his dad's last name. It's just weird that they're not allowing Braun Breaker to be known as Braun Steiner or something like that. So that was just one thing that I kind of wanted to point out there. But next week we're going to get Triple H probably back on SmackDown. Hopefully anyways. But if not, we know that at least we're going to get The Rock. At least we're going to get Roman Reigns. And, we're going to get another development because I don't think that WWE is going to go 2 weeks in a row just sitting on their hands during the best season in the entire wrestling calendar year. Moving on, another thing that happened here in the show was Bayley cutting her first babyface promo in roughly 5 years, unless you count last week, making her announcement that she's pretty much turning on Damage Control and challenging Io Sky. If you count that as a babyface promo, I don't, because she came to the ring as a member of Damage Control. She came to the ring with her mind not made up just yet on what she was going to do. I mean, I'm sure her mind was already made up, but at least for us as the audience, we didn't know what she was going to do just yet. You may have had an idea. You may have thought, oh, she's definitely going to go after Io Sky. It just makes so much sense. It wasn't a 100% guarantee. But she does feel like she needs to clear the air with the crowd, kind of, address the elephant in the room, which is she's pretty much been crapping on the crowd for the past 5 years. So she makes sure that they're on good terms and that there's no bad blood. And they made it seem like they welcomed her back with open arms. She goes on to talk about how much Damage Control means to her or meant to her and how the group ended up being toxic for her because of the environment and just the shady tendencies that the wrestlers would do, the other people in the group, like they would stop talking whenever she'd enter the room. There was a lot of whispering going on. She could just tell that there was things going on behind her back, and it was in her best interest to eliminate herself from that group. So Dakota Kai comes out, obviously. She was noticeably not there last week whenever all that crap happened, the whole brawl and the whole attack from behind. So, we couldn't necessarily blame her for Bayley getting jumped by Damage Control. So I wanted to hear what she said. She comes out, and at first she pretty much plays dumb. She said, I wasn't here last week. What happened? I had no idea. Whatever. Bayley calls her out. Pretty much says, yeah, whatever, And then Dakota Kai obviously changes her story and says that she was put in a rough spot and she always believed in what Bayley built. Dakota Kai blames the Kabuki Warriors for getting in Io's head and changing everything. She says that she misses the OG3 in Damage Control and credits Bayley for even being, she credits Bayley for her even being in WWE. I will say this was impressive mic work from Dakota Kai. I did not do it justice. It was much longer promo. She definitely was hitting the spots that she needed to hit. It seemed very, very believable. And even Bayley was like, hey, I need a decision. Where do you stand now? Like, what's going on? Like, are you back with them or are you going to join me? And it seemed like she was about to make a decision until the rest of Damage Control came out. They surrounded the ring, and Dakota Kai quickly leaves. And they're like, oh, man, she's a snake. She set Bayley up. Now here we go. Damage Control is about to come out, catch her at a disadvantageous spot. And, yeah, Bayley's about to get jumped again. But Dakota Kai runs back into the ring with a steel chair, and she goes after Damage Control. All three of them, scares all three of them out of the ring. And her and Bayley have a weird, little face-to-face type thing. Really wasn't sure what's going to happen. But this is just another twist, man. You have to give the creative team, whoever's responsible, whoever's producing these segments for Damage Control, you have to give them credit. This is a phenomenal job by them. They're doing everything right. They're pulling all the layers that they need to pull, seeing Bayley catch them talking behind her back in the locker room right before she made her decision. Such a callback to the Dave Bautista 2005 Royal Rumble decision, which I've already mentioned. I've already told you guys all about that. So the fact that they're adding another layer here, having Dakota Kai seem a little bit on the fence as to what she's going to do, it's just absolutely brilliant work. And, I'm really looking forward to seeing where this goes now that it's taken another turn. Up next, we have a number one contender tag team match. The winner faces Judgment Day at Elimination Chamber. This one is Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate versus DIY. I would have bet the house that DIY was going to win this match. However, I mentioned it as soon as Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate got their first win in this little tournament. I had just a feeling that because of where the tournament is taking place, because it's overseas, WWE likes to cater to their foreign wrestlers whenever they go overseas. Totally understand why. It makes sense. It gives people more opportunities to get the spotlight on them. But I just feel like it's only a matter of time before DIY gets that tag team gold. Even if Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate get it done and they win those championships in Australia, they're probably going to have to run into Tyler Bate, or I apologize, they're probably going to have to run into DIY almost immediately when they get back to the States. That's just my personal opinion. I think that, the championships being on DIY just makes so much sense. But obviously, Dunne and Bate get the win after a pretty phenomenal match. Pete Dunne hits Gargano with the bitter end, and there was a sign of respect after the match from both teams. So clearly two babyface teams here. I do hope that they take the belt off of Judgment Day. That's just my personal preference. I would like to see Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate have a championship reign, even if it immediately gets put to the test against DIY. I just think that the tag team belts would do more for them as a tag team, and it would allow them to get a little bit more credibility in that same breath. So yeah, I definitely want to see Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate defeat Judgment Day at Elimination Chamber. Another thing that happened backstage, which was pretty funny, we had Dominic Mysterio and Kevin Owens having a little bit of an interaction. They were going back and forth because Dominic pretty much says he's going to win the Elimination Chamber and he's going to be the one that goes and defeats Seth Rollins. And the person giving the interview immediately said, well, you haven't even qualified yet. He's like, qualified? Are you kidding me? I'm going to smash whoever's in front of me. Doesn't really matter. And then Kevin Owens walks up and says, yeah, I'm the person that you're going to have to fight. I'm the person that you're going to have to go up against to earn your spot in the Elimination Chamber. Don't know who's going to win that match. But this whole thing it got a lot more funny whenever R-Truth walked up and he called Kevin Owens The Miz. Obviously, probably because the KO show, The Miz, they both have their little TV shows, their own talk shows, I guess, that are on their respective brands. But nonetheless, R-Truth calls him The Miz, and he's like, why the hell are you calling me The Miz? All that stuff is, hey, don't run into Nick, talking about Nick Aldis. R-Truth is doing some phenomenal work. You could hear the crowd behind him. You could hear them cheering his name so loud. We want Truth. And I'm right there with them, man. R-Truth he's in his bag right now. This is some of the best work that he's done in a very, very long time. But this show closes with the main event. It was an Elimination Chamber qualifying match between Sami Zayn and Randy Orton. This one went back and forth as well. Very good match. Couple commercial breaks in between. But it ended when Randy Orton was trying to hit a couple RKOs. Sami Zayn continued to counter. Was not allowing Randy Orton to hit the RKO. He hit a blue thunderbomb, hit a near fall, 2.5 before Randy Orton kicked out and then jumped off the rope. Had a phenomenal RKO to actually win the match and earn his spot in the Elimination Chamber. Him and Drew McIntyre both earned their spot tonight, or last night, I should say. And then they had a little bit of a face-off, a little face-to-face as the show went off the air. So I will say, pretty solid episode of SmackDown. It wasn't the best. Obviously, you want to see more of Roman Reigns. You want to see more of The Rock, Cody Rhodes. It just makes sense for them to be on TV as much as possible on the road to WrestleMania. We're going to get them next week, so hopefully we'll get a lot better show and a lot more of a positive reaction to what SmackDown has to offer. But that does do it for the SmackDown review. I do apologize for not having a Stack 'em Up Saturday. I will have one the next time I go on Saturday, I promise. It's just freezing in this frozen tundra here in the Function Dungeon. 37 degrees, I believe it is right now. I'm literally, I'm wearing a long robe. I have my feet down by a space heater. So if it were a little bit warmer, I might, chip in another 10, 15 minutes doing a Stack 'em Up Saturday. But I will be back next week. So hopefully, if the show allows it, I will be delivering a Stack 'em Up Saturday for you guys. But I hope you all have a phenomenal weekend. Stay safe. Eat all the food you want. It's Super Bowl Sunday, which leads me to say, go listen to the Football Function podcast. It's about to start year 4. As soon as Super Bowl Sunday is over, my podcast will officially close the book on its 3rd year, and we will move on to the 4th year in the show's existence. I want to give a massive shout out to all of you who have come over and listened, all of you that have, contributed, been on the show, come on as guests. It means the world to me. And this is just an open invitation. If you're a football fan and you want to get your voice heard and you want to represent your team, get your opinions out there, how can your team get better for the 2024 season? There's no better place to do that than the Football Function podcast. So thank you guys so much. Have a damn good weekend. Walk passionately in the direction of your dreams, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the WWE podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.